Hi, this is Joe Rabil from Rabil Stock Research with your Daily 5 today. I want to highlight some individual stocks and show how I go about picking them. I'm really going to zero in on the ADX and 2 time frames to show you how I go about doing it. And so I want to go ahead and get into the Daily 5 and spend a few minutes on each one of these stocks. But just to start, I want to show you, I've got the monthly in the bottom left, I've got a weekly chart in the bottom right, a daily in the upper right, and then I've got another weekly chart, and I've got the relative strength versus the S&P down in this scale down here. So, because I want to look at the entire weight of the evidence at one time. And what I like to do is price and volume obviously play a role in my weight of the evidence. The moving averages play a role. MACD and ADX also play a role in terms of momentum. And then I looked at relative strength as a component versus the market to get an idea of how stocks are doing relative to everything else. And then I like to look at the individual industry groups and sectors as a component of my weight of the evidence. So these are all factors, and I would tell you that I start with the highest time frame first, typically because I'm trying to identify stocks that I think look attractive, say over the next 3 to 6 months. So I like to start with the monthly and see if I have the wind at my back, if there's something in the monthly that's telling me that there's an upside bias in place. So, but let's go ahead and get going now. I'm going to talk about Corp number 1. So if you look at what took place here, you can see that the stock made a nice move in 2019, pulled back, and then bounced off the 18-month line, which was rising above a 40-month. So we had a pretty nice pattern in place based on the moving averages, and we had a strong ADX in place at that point. We make another new high and we pull back, and now we're starting to lift off this line again. And in a similar fashion, that the way this turned like this, we have this same sort of cupping pattern developing. You can almost look at it like a cup and handle, and you can see that on the weekly. So I like the looks of that pattern. One of the things I like to do when I'm zeroing in, if I'm looking at thousands of charts and I'm trying to zero in on what are the ones that I think are the most attractive, I want to look at this ADX on the monthly, the higher time frame, because I'm looking for the ones that are showing strength. That would be ones where the ADX is above this 25 line that's going across here. And if we get that, especially where green DI is above 25 and this blue ADX line is above 25, showing the buyers are showing strength and the ADX is showing strength even through pullbacks, that I've got a pretty powerful trend on my hands. And so then I want to go down to the smaller time frames to identify the timing of that. And I do like the way this is cupping around, forming sort of like a cup and handle pattern. Now this has low ADX, but there's no strength in the sellers right now. Red DI is staying low. And then we have this cup that has developed on the daily chart, sort of taking out this mid-50s resistance. I think this is pretty attractive from that standpoint. DHI. So this is a little bit different, although we start with the same idea where the monthly chart is strong and we're pulling back. And again, we have strong ADX in place, but we haven't gone through as an extensive of a correction because we haven't even made it back to the 18-month line. In some cases, that's going to happen when we're in a pretty strong trend. And the other thing I like to look at is this MACD. And we can see that the MACD was really overbought. When price was way up here, we had a MACD that was pretty far away from its MACD line, or its center line, its zero line here. And we've spent several months working its way back to the zero line. And we don't have any strength in the sellers again. We have low ADX on this side. So we have strong ADX on this side and low ADX on this side. And that's a nice complementary ADX position you want to have in place when you're looking at multiple time frames. So I can see that even though we've corrected, we haven't had a lot of strength in the sell side, and now the MACD looks like it's turning at the zero line. So in this case, I'd probably be looking at a break of this downtrend line because we didn't have any zero. We turned right at the zero line. I think that's a sign of strength. Coming back up through this trend line, I believe, is a very good sign. Now, on the daily chart, we are a little overbought, and we're coming up against this resistance. So having some kind of a pullback in the near term, or at least a pause, you know, some kind of a maybe little dip towards the 95, 94, something like that, might be a really good opportunity. We're showing good strength on a momentum basis, and I do think this wants to break out above this resistance, but we might pause or pull back first. Let's look at Freeport, because again, we have a similar situation on our hands where the ADX is showing nice strength. We've got a nice complement of the MACD hitting a new high with price. And look at the strength of this move to the upside. This is on a monthly chart, and we hardly hesitated for several months all the way up. And now we've gone through a pretty orderly pullback, and ADX is still at 47. I mean, we're looking at a 47 line, even though we've gone through 4 or 5 months of correcting. So that's kind of like my starting point. And then we go to the weekly chart, and we can see the same pattern where when we hit a high here, the MACD was pretty overdone, and it needed to go through a correction or a pullback. It's an overbought, oversold oscillator, so we've worked our way back to neutral, and now it's starting to turn around, and we have the same complementary low ADX pattern on the weekly chart showing not a lot of strength in the sellers. Let's go to Levi. So another one where we show nice strength on the monthly, and then a 4 to 5 month correction, consolidation back towards the breakout area. So we can see this level here was where it broke out from, and then we rallied up, and when you pull back and hold that breakout level and almost stair steps its way up, that's usually a very good sign with ADX confirming. Now we can see on the weekly chart, we got overbought on the MACD, we worked our way back down, got it back to neutral, and now we have a low ADX condition in place. So this is another one that I think is attractive. Now, this is a little bit different. I think the daily is going to probably want to form its own little cup here and saucer around, and I think coming back up through 28 would be the most attractive way to look at this. My reasoning is the 18-week is still declining, so I'm more inclined to believe that this is going to take a little bit more time to kick in, but definitely worth watching. Finally, let's look at NATI. Now, this is different because if we look at this, notice how the ADX is low actually, and the last decline or the last move was based on the selling strength, not on the buying strength. But I can look at this and I can see a nice break of the downtrend line. The fact that we are respecting these moving averages have been working sideways. So I kind of like the price action here and the fact that we're holding. Now, this is a pretty key level here around 45 that I do think we need to get through. But if I go and look at the weekly chart, now we have a different look to the ADX. We have low ADX on what I would consider to be the higher time frame, which is the weekly, and then the lower time frame is showing strength in the ADX. So we've got we had low ADX on this time frame, and we had low ADX on this time frame. Now this one is kicking in, and it's getting things going. So I'd look for any kind of a little weakness or pullback. As long as it's modest, I would consider buying this ahead of the breakout at 45. The other option is to let it break out and buy the first pullback on the weekly chart. I like the setup on the MACD. The way this is just saucered around and respected the zero line, I think is a real good sign. And again, we have a lot of support based on the monthly chart. So I think these are all good signs. Definitely stocks I think you could be on the lookout for and look for an entry over the course of the next week or two. So I hope you enjoyed this segment. You can contact me through LinkedIn or find my research on rabilstockresearch.com. In addition, if you'd like to learn more about trend, MACD, and ADX in multiple time frames, I have a YouTube channel and a book called Invest Like a Pro, which delves into this subject. Have a great trading day, and I'll see you next time.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.